What is going on, all of you emerald hunters out there in the world? I am MegaAmpster. Thank you for clicking on this video. If you're new here, hey, welcome to the channel. Good to see you here. Returning viewers, thank you for the continued support. Always great to see you here. We are getting into some deep, nerdy Sonic lore here. Maybe I'll make like a series out of these kinds of videos. Let me know if there's any other deep lore videos, not just Sonic, that you would like to see me do, but Sonic, as those of you who have been here before, is my forte. That is the stuff I know the most about. I've been playing the games my entire life, and there's been one thing in particular that I don't see get talked a lot about that's just always been of interest to me, and that is the kind of like the consistency when it comes to the ordering and even the number of Chaos Emeralds that have appeared throughout the series, because Sonic's been going on for over 30 years now, and believe it or not, especially early on, there was a little consistency with the Chaos Emeralds, and I just kind of wanted to take a look at, I've got too many tabs open here of all the images of a good chunk of the games and kind of pay attention and see like what the ordering is. I have this up. I want to give a shout out, massive shout out to Sonic Retro for having all this information organized. Definitely looked through. I'm not looking at every single one of these games because a lot of these are just kind of ridiculous, especially with games that don't have the special stages where it's really like the ordering of the Chaos Emeralds is more tied to the story. I'm not really counting those. Like I'm thinking like Sonic 06, the adventure games I might touch on lightly, but for the most part, won't be covering those. So yes, a lot of the 2D games, but also some of the 3D ones too. So let's just kind of dive into this, right? There's really no way to get started except with the original game. We're going to start with the Genesis games here. With Sonic 1 on the Genesis, there were actually only 6 Chaos Emeralds to start off with. Originally, I mixed this up on a stream earlier. I thought all of these were blue. We'll get to that in a second. They are not. They are different colors here. You can see we start off with the red, and then like this purplish, like pink, and then more of a blue, yellow, green, and then gray. So we have those 6 colors to start off with red being the first one, gray being the last one. And yeah, pretty much that's kind of how it all started, right? With Sonic 06, Sonic 1, you had the 6 different zones. Of course, Green Hill through Scrap Rain made sense. The only other way they'd introduced the 7th Chaos Emerald, which they've done in other games like this, where it's structured this way, is they've introduced it to the story, but they didn't end up doing that. So we just had one per zone in that game, which made sense. We move on to Sonic 2, however, and things get very interesting here. So I was trying to figure out the order here. Could not figure it out. Tell me what the order that you collect these in. Like I said, I didn't go balls to the wall. This took me like an hour just to collect all these together. That's as much effort as you're getting out of me. In terms of the ordering of these, I have no clue, but you can see they introduced a 7th emerald here, being, we compare, you know, here we had like the pink, magenta, we had the blue. They actually added a straight up purple here. The blue they made slightly lighter, and the other 4, the red, green, yellow, and gray are still there, but we kind of have this purple now. So now we have these 7 here, and you can kind of see, if you're used to the more recent games, you're like, oh, why do the emeralds look so weird? They are kind of interesting here. They started off as like an octagonal shape in Sonic 1. It really kind of looks more like, it's tough to tell, because like, usually I just thought this is what they look like from the side, but it might be a top-down view. Whereas you look here, and you can see that now we got the hexagonal shape on top. I think these are supposed to be overhead views of the emeralds if I had to guess, but it's tough to say because then again, Sonic CD, which I actually did not cover here, I literally just remembered it, had the time stones, which are their own separate thing, which kind of looks more similar to the Chaos Emerald from Sonic 1, which makes sense if you know about the development of Sonic CD. It's a whole other thing. Those actually might be all one color. I don't know. I didn't look into that. They're not Chaos Emeralds. Shut up. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to see the change in the shape of the Chaos Emerald, but also the addition of the color here. This is where we finally got that 7th emerald here with the purple one, which is cool. Moving on to Sonic 3. Now this gets very, very interesting. I believe the order here is supposed to start with red and then blue. To be honest, I didn't look like a zigzag pattern. I didn't look too much into this. I'm not going to lie. But what's really interesting here is that, first of all, we're back to the octagonal shape of, well, supposedly. It's so tough to tell from the screenshot of Sonic 1, but maybe it's not. What's really interesting is, you know, if you're a newer fan, you might look at this bottom half of the screenshot and say, wait, those look more like the Chaos Emeralds, and that's because these are the Super Emeralds from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, specifically that version. The only appearance of the Super Emeralds in the games, and of course the big Master Emerald here in the top background here. But the colors on these are weird because you have a red, you have a dark blue, you have like a reddish orange, which is interesting. A green like the Master Emerald. Then you have your kind of a little bit of light purple. Another blue that's like honestly it's almost like an indigo. It's kind of a weird one. And then the gray. So the coloring on the Super Emeralds is super weird, but the designs of the Super Emeralds look much more like even the modern design of the Chaos Emeralds. So it's interesting because from here on out, well, we'll get into a few exceptions, but after Sonic 3 and Knuckles, like they started to really look more like the Super Emeralds here. And so while the Super Emeralds are no longer a thing and Hypersonic is no longer a thing in the games, they still kind of live on in the modern Chaos Emerald designs. Like I said, the one caveat might be, like, I never really thought of these Chaos Emeralds being, like, the top down of the Emerald, but I don't think they're supposed to be. I think that's just the Chaos Emeralds on their side. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I don't know why they would have it from that first top-down perspective anyways. I'm trying to justify if the Emeralds in, like, these original trilogy of games would actually look like the current models. I don't think so, though. They were just these weird, like, hexagonal, octagonal shapes, which was interesting. But from there, I threw Mania in here because you can see, look at this. Right? Just look at the Super Emeralds and look at the Chaos Emeralds here. So after 3 and Knuckles, they really just kind of honed in on these designs for the Chaos Emeralds. And honestly, I'm fine with that. I think they look a lot better here. Of course, the Master Emerald has that same shape, just bigger. I personally, I mean, maybe just because I grew up with like the adventure games, I prefer these designs of the Emeralds. But the coloring is definitely interesting. It's almost matching up with the Chaos Emeralds here, but you can also see like, rather than the yellow, it's like the orangish, and then the purple's a little different. I guess, is that purple? That's magenta? It's just the coloring's a little weird, but maybe that's just the screenshot I'm looking at. Now here, with Mania, right? Now, I grouped these in the 2D games because it's in the same vein, but this was, how many years later? 23? After Sonic 3? Something like that? Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Ordering here is extremely different, right? In a lot of these games, we started off with the red emeralds, right? You got the red, the pink. Some of these orders were super weird. I have no idea. I can't tell with Sonic 2. I cannot tell. But even like here with Sonic 3 Knuckles, red, blue, yellow, green, right? That order. Here, we're starting with green, then yellow, blue, purple. But like you can see the coloring for the most part carries over pretty well. I guess, are they considering this like a turquoise then? Or is that a purple? I don't fucking know. I don't think I'm colorblind, but maybe I am. What's interesting is that red is the last one here. That throws me off, because red has pretty much, maybe with the exception of Sonic 2, been the first one, and now it's the last one. That is definitely interesting, starting with green instead. And you're going to see, keep the green and the red in mind, because trust me, they're going to flip-flop constantly, and it's going to get very weird. So let's jump over to some of the Game Gear games, right? So we're going back into the 90s. This is what I was thinking of when I mentioned this in a previous stream. Sonic 1 on Game Gear and the Master System versions only had blue Chaos Emeralds. That is it. You can see, oh, I forgot to zoom in on this one. This being Jungle Zone, this being, I think it could be Bridge, but I'm pretty sure it's Green Hill. They were all the same color. They were all that octagonal shape like in the OG game, but they were all blue. So that was just, I don't even know. That's just the weird oddity one, because then in Sonic 2 on Game Gear, we got the colored ones back. And interestingly, still have the octagonal shape, not taking the hexagonal like in Sonic 2 on the Genesis, but we're starting to actually get colors. I don't know the orders of these. Don't ask me that. I didn't spend that much time looking into this, and I didn't want to spend more time looking into this, so this is all you're getting. But this is a little bit of an oddity with Sonic 1 on the Game Gear, just how they're all the same blue color. They easily could have programmed different colors into them, but they chose not to, so it was like, oh, okay. I'd be curious to know the development of that and why they did that, but then we started getting the more colored ones in Sonic 2 for Game Gear, probably after Sonic 1 on Genesis established the different colors. Then we get into some other interesting ones here. For example, this is taken from Sonic Chaos. I forget which, it might be the special stage where, is it special stage 2? Where you're like using the pogo stick thing to jump up the platforms, I think, if I remember correctly. This is obviously the yellow one. Still has the kind of that octagonal shape, which is interesting, but I want to say this is the second Emerald. Then again, I don't fully know. I didn't look too much into this. I don't know if, oh my god, I hate the zooming in feature, how it should zoom in individually for each tab. I hate how it just kind of is a little inconsistent, but you can even see there's a red emerald there as well in one of the later zones. So definitely interesting how they do that. I just wanted to make sure I'm not missing anything here. Then we get to this. This being Sonic Spinball on the Genesis. This has the exact same issue as Sonic 1 on Game Gear, where all of the emeralds are blue, and they have that octagonal color like the OG game. I mean, think about it, this was 2 years. This was one of the first Sonic games. This was 2 years after Sonic 1, so it's like, okay, like, that's understandable. But, like, apparently there are theories that people don't regard these as actual Chaos Emeralds, which, I mean, I could see, but then what are they if they're not Chaos Emeralds? Sonic 1 on Game Gear calls these Chaos Emeralds. If these aren't Chaos Emeralds, what are they? They're not Time Stones, right? It says Emerald Power. I don't know. This is why we're not digging too much into it. We're just kind of observing. Let's move on to Sonic 3D Blast, which there was the Genesis one, and then there was the one on the Saturn. The one on the Saturn had way better special stages from what I've heard. Have not played it. Only played the Genesis one on my end. But here, this is one of the weird oddballs. We're starting off with the yellow emerald. If we're going left to right, which is usually the order. Yellow, then green, then red, then blue, purple, magenta-ish. The purple magenta, like, changes a lot, if you've noticed. Also, now we have white instead of gray, or maybe that's gray, I don't know. And then this is, it's so inconsistent. This one, I have no idea. I couldn't tell you the ordering of this one. It's definitely weird. Okay. You guys might be asking, what the hell is this screenshot? What is this from? This is from Sonic the Fighters, which was an arcade exclusive game. Then they re-released it in the Sonic Gems collection on GameCube, and then they also re-released it on like XBLA and I think PS3 a little while ago with the like secret characters, Honey the Cat, playing as Eggman, all that. This game has 8 Chaos Emeralds. Now, don't ask me what, like, the reason for this is because when you play the arcade mode, there are 8 fighters. So if I play as Sonic, let's say, you're gonna fight Amy, you're gonna fight Tails, you're gonna fight Knuckles, you fight Espio. You fight Knack, or Fang, however you want to call him. You fight Bark the Polar Bear, Bean the Dynamite, and then a cloned version of yourself. You fight like a shadow version of yourself at the end. So that's why they were like, oh, I mean, to be honest, they should have just gotten rid of the shadow clone and then just had 7 Chaos Emeralds. I don't really know why they did it that way. But yeah, now we have 8 emeralds. We have a red, an orange, and a yellow, which is really weird. We also have like 3 shades of the... Okay, I'm going to go pink, purple, and magenta. No gray, no teal. They really went balls to the wall with this game. I mean, this is also the game that called Robotnik Robotonic in the intro, so this game is... Do not take this game as a grain of salt. This is the oddest out of all of them, because there's 8 of them, the colors are whack, the game itself is really weird. There's a Rocket Metal Sonic transformation that's only appeared in that game. Very strange stuff. Alright, and then of course, before we move on to more of the 3D games, we gotta mention Sonic R, right? Because the Chaos Emeralds were in Sonic R, and what's weird about this is the orange one came back from Fighters for whatever reason. Though there's the gray/white, that always changes, but I like to call it the gray because it might just be the lighting. They got rid of the dark blue. We still have the teal now, but no dark blue, which we did have in Fighters. You see the inconsistencies here? This gets absurd. And like the order you collect them in, right? If we're assuming left to right, because this seems like it's the last track. This would probably be, not Radiant Emeralds, because you get them in 4 tracks. That would be Reactive Factory. I think it's level 4 if I remember correctly. The red and the gray ones last. Doesn't make any sense, right? Doesn't make any sense. One thing I want to get into here, like I mentioned, I didn't really look into this or pull up screenshots too much of this, but I did find it interesting as I was going through this list here on Sonic Retro here. Is that, of course, okay, Triple Trouble had 6 emeralds. Excuse me. Sonic Blast. There are only 5? So I guess, I didn't even remember this. This is probably the game with the fewest amount of Chaos Emeralds, which is really weird. I don't know. I blocked that game out of my mind. Okay. The adventure games. These are some of the 3D games I wanted to highlight because you can see here, Sonic Retro nicely lays out the order. It's almost backwards in a way because we're starting off with the purple Chaos Emerald. As you can see in the screenshot here, if you remember the very beginning of Sonic Adventure, Tails finds the purple Chaos Emerald and shows it to Sonic. He's using it in the prototype of the tornado. So that's technically the first one you see, although I think it's the last one that gets obtained by Chaos. So maybe that's where the order comes in. But you can see, then we go blue. They're calling it white here and not gray, so that's interesting. Then green, yellow side. It's all over the place with that order. But what's honestly kind of cool is that they're kind of mentioning it in the same order here. But I don't know if it's actually in order. No, okay. It's not really mentioned in order here. I was kind of hoping it was, but right, because purple, Rouge gets in Security Hall. Blue one is stolen by Rouge at some point, of course. Owed by Eggman. So Eggman has the white at the beginning of the game. So technically the white one is probably the first one if you're going timeline order. But yeah, and then the green one would be second, I guess. So that's why I didn't want to go into the 3D games too much, because the ordering is absurd. You know, it's really there. It's tied to the story more than anything here, and like we don't have to go into that. The 2D games make it easy, but keep in mind, Sonic Heroes did have special stages, because it's kind of like Sonic Heroes to me is similar to like Mario 3D World, where it's like a 2D game in 3D, if that makes sense, like the 2D design mentality from Sonic in 3D. What's weird about this one is you can see we're starting with the green. We're ending on the red again. Let's go back to Sonic Mania and compare, right? Green, yellow, blue, purple, gray/white, teal, and red. Green, blue, yellow. Okay, so it's slightly different. Hold on. They swapped yellow and blue. And then the purple, gray, and /white and teal. They go, Mania goes purple, gray, teal. Gray, teal, purple. So they kind of changed that up. And then, but the green and the red are still in the same places. So kind of weird how they start with the green and end with the red. Definitely just something weird to keep in mind. But like, yeah, because these special stages were not fun. But there you go. There's your Order of Chaos symbols right there, right? And of course, they have their modern designs. From here on out, we stick with the modern designs. They don't really go back. These are the ones, okay. I played the hell out of the Sonic Advance games when I was a kid. This is the order of the Chaos Emeralds that, to me, has always been like the canonical order because I played them so much. This order goes red, blue, yellow, green, gray /white, teal. Is that a teal or turquoise? I don't know. Maybe we'll call it light blue. And purple/magenta, right? These, to me, have always been the 7 emeralds in order. Now, what I'm curious to see... Not quite. Almost matches up with Sonic 3. If we look at this, right? Red, blue, yellow, green. Oh, so close. It's just like the light blue. The magenta, gray, and light blue are kind of swapped around between these two, but it's very close to the order of Sonic 3. Very close. So we have some connections here. Sonic Advance games, and from what I've looked up, the order is the same for all 3 Advance games. Sonic Advance games are closer to like the classic games. And then Sonic Mania, interestingly enough, which I didn't even realize until now, it's the closest it's gotten to, it seems to be Sonic Heroes. If we're, you know, taking a look at the order there. You know, Sonic 3D Blast is weird. It's starting off with the yellow. And then the Game Gear games I did not care enough about to look into. After that, though, we have the Sonic Rush games. Now these, let's look at these side by side. Red, blue, yellow, green, gray. Yep, okay. So Sonic Rush and Sonic Advance, for the most part, we're about to get to a caveat, have consistent ordering and consistent coloring in between these emeralds. So, and I think it's because Dimps worked on all those games, so that makes sense. You know, I do say I like the consistencies here, how they carried it over. You know, at least for these 2D games, whereas the 3D ones, it makes less sense because obviously, like, they'll find different Chaos Emeralds in different areas or regions, but at least with the special stages, it makes sense that they be in the same order. Right, so these are aligned. However, we get to Sonic Rush 3, and things get a little different. And you're probably asking, what the hell are you talking about? There is no Sonic Rush 3. I beg to differ. Sonic Rush 3... Oh, before I move on. Soul Emeralds and Sonic Rush, same color, and Rush Adventure. Sonic Rush 3 is Sonic Colors DS, and I won't let anybody tell me otherwise. Look at the ordering here. Let's compare to what we had before. Interesting. Okay. So, jumping too early. It's hard to keep track of these. So once again, we have the starting with the green and ending with the red. And it goes green, purple, yellow, blue, gray, teal. So some of these are the same between Rush and Sonic Colors DS, but red is last again, green is first again. and then you kind of throw purple in the second one. Like, I don't know. It's a little weird. It's a little weird. But what I'm curious to see. Okay. Not quite the same, but pretty close, right? So Mania, Heroes, and Sonic Colors DS, right? Because the Chaos Emeralds were not in Sonic Colors on the console version, from what I remember, are kind of related. So the Sonic Advance and Rush harken back to like the old 2D games, especially Sonic 3. Then Dim said, you know what? Let's screw this up again with Sonic 4. Now, if we take a look at Sonic 4 Episode 1 and some of the other games, yes, it is the same exact order. It is consistent. Okay, cool. Red, blue, yellow, green, you know, all that. Cool, makes sense. Sonic 4 Episode 2, on the other hand, decides to just throw everything for a loop, even though it's literally the same game. And they're like, oh, no, we're going to change it up. So now we have, this one's not even, this is just a made-up order. Teal, pink / magenta, I don't know. Red, green, like, this is what I don't get, right? How are they different orders between the two? That's the wild part to me. Like, look at this. It's the same engine, it's the same style of game. If it's an episodic release, they're almost like both tied to the same. It's just, it's very weird. The designs are completely different too. Sonic 4 is an anomaly. The fact that they made it episodic, but they feel like, you know, like the structure's really different. I don't know. Definitely a weird thing that I just noticed. We're almost done here. Don't worry. We're almost done. We got to talk about Sonic Generations 3DS because it's also really weird. I believe Dimps also made this version, and because the Chaos Emeralds, I did not look into the console version of Generations, but here we are with Sonic Generations 3DS. Starting off with the green again. Okay, going back to, like, the Colors DS. And actually, it's fairly similar to Colors DS, because you get the purple second as well. The yellow and the blue kind of flip-flop, and then the last three flip-flop again. But then again, why are there 3 shades of blue here? Is this supposed to be white? If this is supposed to be white, I don't understand. We have like a bunch of different blues here, and it gets really confusing. So this one, what's also funny is that you figured they pulled the special stages from Sonic Heroes, and you'd think they'd keep the order the same, but no, they didn't. So, okay. And then we get into Lost World 3DS. Lost World 3DS. Let me see if there's one that's like Lost World 3DS. Starting off with green. So that would be like Sonic Heroes. No. None of these. That's the thing, is like the ordering consistency really doesn't exist. Although it's not too far off from Mania. So you can kind of see the ins and outs of like how these kind of went along, you know, and how they kind of evolved over time. The last thing I want to look into is just something I want to mention quickly here on the site regarding Frontiers, right? The most recent game in the franchise, right? There's a lot of games I'm skipping here, I know, especially the 3D ones I'm not including here. Where are you? Sonic Frontiers. This is another one where obviously there's no special stages. They're just, you know, the more you unlock of like memory tokens, you get the keys, you get the vaults, the more of these you'll unlock. What's an interesting consistency that they mention here is that the purple emerald for every island except Oranos is always held by the Titan. 6 of the emeralds are obtained while exploring the islands, with the island's Titan in possession of the purple emerald being the last one you get, right? And so we go back to which ones have the purple one is the last one. Okay, I mean, this is technically purple for Sonic 4 Episode 1, and then those are way too zoomed in. But that's hearkening back to, like, Rush and Advance and the OG games. So it's kind of weird. A lot of the games, trying to establish a pattern, there really is no big pattern, but there's kind of 2 small patterns that I've noticed, right, with these games. And that's, like, Sonic Advance and Rush. Like I said, I grew up playing those games a lot, so that's kind of, this is, like, the order that I always kind of assume with. And this is close to the ordering of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. It's actually pretty much right there, you know, in line with the ordering here and then here with Advance and Rush before Sonic Colors DS. And then, you know, with the purple emerald being the last emerald, also relating to Frontiers in a way. Now, obviously, Frontiers is kind of weird because you unlock the vaults in different orders, but I think the order that the vaults unlock might be pretty similar in Frontiers. I think it's the same emeralds for each island too in Frontiers. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe this ordering, I know the gray ones is one of the later ones. Same thing with the cyan. It might not be this exact order, but it's pretty close, especially with the purple one being the last one, right? The other pattern seems to be kind of like what, for example, Colors DS here is following. Mainly like with Heroes too, right? If we get back to Heroes here, starting off with the green and ending with the red, which is kind of weird, but also harkens back a little to Mania. And that's kind of the shocking thing to me, is that Mania is not the same order as 3 and Knuckles. That to me is bizarre. Let me know if you think it's weird. That's weird to me. You know, I genuinely, the whole point of this video was just for me to nerd out about the Chaos Emeralds here, and I'm done looking at these for a while. But like, just to kind of look at the order here, it's curious to see how they decide the ordering. Like, I want to know what goes into that, you know, if there's any significance. From what I can tell, the most consistent thing, this seems to be, for the most part, the most consistent ordering, although not always exact. Like Rush, Advance, kind of the classic games harken to this order with the coloring, as well as Frontiers, you know. But there's also been some cases, like with Mania's kind of similar to Heroes, but then, of course, a lot of games, they just completely throw it out the window. Like, the 3D Blast starting with yellow is really weird. Sonic R starting with the teal one, like, what? It gets a little weird. I think that might mean that every emerald has been the first one at least once. You know? The teal kind of there starts with Sonic 4 Episode 2. But green and red seem to be the most common starting ones, and purple and I guess kind of red seem to be the most consistent ending ones. Gray is usually later on, teal for the most part is usually later on, and then like the semantics in between, kind of the yellow and the blue kind of trade off. So those are kind of the main patterns you can get from this, but one more thing I'm actually curious about, thinking about now. Give me a second, because I have the Sonic Lego set that we can actually take a look at. I did not change the ordering of those colors, I don't think. There is a chance I did mess around with these, but let's look at the ordering here. I guess if we're to take a look at this, it would technically be starting with the red, magenta, blue, cyan. Okay, so they got the coloring right, but the order is a little interesting. I don't know. Mainly, what I'm trying to get at here, right? What I'm trying to get at here is that there is no consistency with the ordering. That's kind of the ultimate thing. Even the coloring. Like, you look at this is more of a magenta. Here we have a purple. But then you look at some of the other games, and no, it is kind of like a magenta almost. Mainly the earlier ones, or like here, for example, Sonic 4 Episodes 1 and 2. That's not really a purple. That's more of like a pink even, you know? So there really is no consistency. I've always considered this like the main ordering, like the ordering that I'm used to seeing in the Sonic games, starting with red, ending with purple, you know? But let me know what you think. I know this video's, I'm just rambling on at this point. This video's been very long. I did it because I was interested in it, and some of you voted for this to be the first video that I kind of look into. But let me know what you think about this video. I know it's been very long. Thank you if you made it somehow through the entire thing. It's just me rambling on at this point. I thought it was fun to just take a little deep dive into this, because there really is not a ton of consistency. There are a few things there, but a lot of it's just very unique, you know? So with that, let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know what you think the proper ordering of the Chaos Emeralds are, you know, and if you're a fan of these modern designs, or if you do prefer like the hexagonal, octagonal designs of the OG Chaos Emeralds in the Genesis games. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below, and hey, otherwise, I will catch you all in the next video or live stream, and until then, take care, stay awesome.